Tonight on NewsCenter. The race is on with early voting for the April 13th parliamentary election kicking off tomorrow. Political parties step up campaigning efforts to win those swing votes. The Korean government declares a war on sugar. For the first time ever, Seoul will launch a campaign to reduce sugar consumption by the people. We'll tell you why. And tech giant Samsung Electronics guidance beats analysts' expectations with a better-than-expected first quarter operating profit. That thanks to the early release of its latest flagship smartphone models. NewsCenter begins right now. It is 9 a.m. in Washington, 2 p.m. in London, and 10 on a Thursday night here in Seoul. Hello and welcome to our viewers all across the globe. You're watching Arirang News Center. Six days left until Election Day here in Korea, but the race is already on. Candidates and political parties vying for seats in the 20th National Assembly are wasting no time getting their names out ahead of a two-day early voting period that starts tomorrow. It's the first time that early voting will be used for a parliamentary election in this country, and closely watched is the turnout rate, as it could have significant implications on the final outcome. Our political correspondent Kim Young-gil starts us off.
The country's three main political parties are scrambling to garner public support before early voters head to the polls on Friday to try to put some space between themselves and the competition. Early voters can cast their ballots from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Korea time on Friday and Saturday at one of the 3,500 polling stations nationwide. During the early voting period, the ruling Saenuri Party is targeting voters in their 50s and 60s. The main opposition Minju Party of Korea is targeting people in their 20s and 30s. And the fledgling centrist People's Party is targeting undecided voters and those fed up with both of the leading parties. However, the infighting that affected all of the parties during the candidate selection process has caused voters to become disenchanted with politics, which could spell trouble for the opposition parties. In Korea, low voter turnout typically hurts the liberals rather than the conservatives. Korea's election watchdog first adopted their early voting system during the April by-election in 2013 as part of an effort to boost the voter turnout rate. The first time early voting was used, turnout was 4.9%, but by the 2014 June local elections, it had risen to 11.5%. This is the first time early voting will be used for a general election, and if turnout reaches 15%, then political analysts expect the total voter turnout for this election to reach 60%. During the early voting period, candidates are prohibited from campaigning within 100 meters of polling stations, and the election watchdog has vowed to clamp down on slander between rivals. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
So it's election time here in Korea with the parliamentary election just around the corner. The campaign trail is heating up as candidates and parties race for seats in the 20th National Assembly. Up for grabs this time, 300 seats. Which party will win how many, and what are the leading pledges of each political party? Well, joining us live in the studio for an in-depth look is our senior political correspondent, Park Ji-won. Now, Ji-won, we definitely enjoyed your four-part special series on election forecast by regions, but in a nutshell, how many seats are each of the parties looking to win?
Hey, Konya. Well, as of now, the race is certainly very unpredictable for the time being, but each political party has made their own forecast on the number of parliamentary seats that they expect to receive. Well, this is slightly different from their goals of their own political parliamentary seats they expect to get. as we can see from this CG, this is the number of seats that they realistically expect given recent opinion surveys. And this figure is also a combined number of both local constituencies and proportional seats together. The ruling Centre Party expects from 130 to 140 seats, while the main opposition Minju Party of Korea expects more than 110. In the case of the minor opposition People's Party, it hopes to win more than 20. Well, meanwhile, the minor Justice Party says it expects some 10 seats.
Well, I suppose the most important information at this point for voters to make their decision are the campaign pledges.
Yes, Kanyang. So I have brought here with me some campaign pledge books distributed by each party to reporters. And the books are filled with ambitious goals that it wishes to achieve for the next 4 years. Well, but before I go into any details, I must first tell you that many of these pledges are pretty common in their topics and in their areas. So let's first take a look at pledges regarding security and unification. All parties stress the importance of strengthening South Korea-U.S. alliance, but as you can see here, the ruling Centre Party says it will focus on resolving the issue of war-separate families and support North Korean defectors in South Korea, while the main opposition Minju Party said it hopes to normalize the now closed inner Korean Kaesong industrial complex and to observe previous South Korean joint communiques and declarations. The Minor People's Party said it hopes to provide psychological support and counseling to South Korea's military personnel. And in regard to the economy, the ruling Centre Party focuses on vitalizing domestic market, reviving domestic demand, and aiming at the development of diverse R&D projects and support ICT sectors. The main opposition Minju Party's pledges focus on solving wealth polarization and social inequality and protect small and medium-sized businesses. The People's Party also emphasizes support on ICT industries and support for small and medium-sized businesses. And lastly, in welfare, the ruling Centre Party focuses on providing support for pregnant women and disabled people, while the Minju Party focuses on seniors in the low-income brackets and free childcare services, whereas the People's Party focuses on reducing medical insurance premiums and overhauling the nation's pension system. But I once again emphasize that many of these pledges cover pretty similar topics and areas with slightly different focuses.
Well, Jiwon, the pledges all sound wonderful, but it's no surprise that all these parties are blaring political pledges, promises, and some more promises. But the real question is, are they feasible? Will they carry these out?
Well, according to a civic organization that follows through these election pledges, over 8,000 pledges were made by main political parties 4 years ago, and slightly over half of those total pledges are estimated to have been achieved. Some 40% are still in the works, and the rest 6% are either pending or being scrapped. Where experts are saying that this very desirable political culture of closely examining campaign pledges is increasingly taking root in Korea. Let's take a lesson.
Now that civic groups are demanding parties to submit feasible timetables and budgets that support their pledges, political parties are more and more accustomed to making feasible pledges rather than making empty promises. And this culture of sticking to their pledges is becoming more rooted in Korea.
Well, quite evident is that not all campaign pledges are followed through, but of course, promises are made to be kept. So let's hope that those running in the elections this year, they really fulfill their pledges, or at least the majority of them. All right, Jiwon, cheers to you and your elections coverage team, and we hope to see more of your coverage in the coming days.
Sure, we will keep you updated throughout.
So less than a week till voters head to the polls, and early voting is set to start its two-day run tomorrow. Candidates around the country are out in full force to try and win over voters. But with many electorates expected to be a neck-and-neck, campaign tactics that stand out are a must. Kwon Jang-ho has our news feature tonight.
Campaign season is usually a colorful time in Korea, with plenty of singing and dancing. And there are always some rather unique sights as candidates go the extra mile to try and catch the public's attention. In Sejong City, the Saenuri Party candidate Park Jong-jun has enlisted the help of an air avatar. It greets drivers on the road and lights up at night, attracting the attention of old and young alike.
When candidates just give out campaign business cards and strike up conversations, it can feel awkward. But with the avatar, it makes people more comfortable.
In Seoul's Dongdaemun B district, the Minju Party candidate Min Byung-do is generating interest by donning a safety helmet with a camera attached as he greets the public.
By sticking a camera onto my helmet, I promise to become the people's CCTV. I will keep people safe. That's the message I want to give.
Back in Sejong City, the People's Party candidate Gu Sung-mo has been seen riding on some fancy new wheels and waving at the public with his three-fingered gloves, denoting the party's ballot number. Inflatable lookalikes of the candidate also roam the streets, engaging the voters.
We said we needed to break with convention. In other words, do something new. So we explored new ideas and what was feasible, and we came up with this electric scooter.
And Justice Party candidates have had help from their campaign mascot, Damdori, named and modeled after beads of sweat.
The Justice Party is known as a party that represents workers. We thought about what symbol could be associated with people who work hard, and we realized it was sweat.
The candidates are doing everything they can to try and stand out from the crowd. And alongside the campaigns for individual candidates, the parties are also using catchy campaign songs designed to reinforce the party's message. The Saenuri Party has incorporated its campaign slogan, Run National Assembly, in a cover of a popular 70s golden oldie.
We want to tell Korean citizens that for these elections, we will be running hard and working hard.
The main opposition party has taken inspiration from its official name, the Minju Party of Korea.
The "더" stands for the in our name, but it also means more or better in Korean. It has that dual meaning behind it.
The minority opposition People's Party has looked to childhood nostalgia for its theme song.
Robot Taekwondo was a cartoon in the 70s that gave many students dreams of the future, dreams of justice, science, those kinds of positive messages. We wanted to represent all those elements together.
And the Justice Party has put its own twist on a popular jingle with a dance routine to go along with it.
We chose the song because we wanted to show the joyous side of the Justice Party.
With the parties and candidates all fighting to have their message heard, the campaigns are getting loud in both a literal and figurative sense, and it's drawing a mixed reaction from the public.
When they use these loudspeakers, you can't even understand what they're saying. It just makes the whole area noisy. I really wish they wouldn't do it.
I think it's a good thing for the candidates to actually walk around and interact with the people.
I feel they're investing too much into these campaign songs. Instead of promoting their pledges, they're promoting themselves and the characters they're playing.
Finding the right balance between outlining policy and attracting attention is a challenge for any campaign. The parties and their candidates need to be careful they don't drive voters away by trying too hard. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
UK is implementing a sugar tax, and the World Health Organization is raising more awareness on sugar and diabetes this year. Well, the Korean government is joining in on the efforts. It's declared a war against sugar. Not the best of the best news for those of us with a sweet tooth out there, including myself. Hwang Ho-jun has the details.
I eat them usually when I'm under the weather or when I'm bored after eating a meal.
They say sweet snacks are not good for you, but they do make you feel more at ease. That's why they're so appealing.
The Korean government has launched a campaign implementing a guideline to the daily sugar intake in the country. Marking the World Health Day on Thursday, the Health Ministry's move is in line with the World Health Organization's effort to raise awareness on diabetes as the disease is rapidly growing all around the world.
We consider changing the dietary habit is the most urgent task when trying to prevent diabetes. Our message is to introduce low-sugar dietary habits that people can follow through.
According to the WHO's report in 2016, the number of adults with diabetes has quadrupled worldwide in under 4 decades. Even in Korea, diabetes is also a problem as the increasing sugar intake due to westernized dietary habits are one of the main culprits of obesity in the country.
The reason diabetes is scary is that it doesn't show any symptoms at first, but can bring very serious complications if left untreated for a long time.
The Ministry of Health said the daily sugar intake of an average Korean was roughly 65 grams in 2015, about a 40-gram excess to what is recommended, which is less than 5% of the total daily caloric consumption. For the average person who consumes 2,000 calories a day, that means their daily sugar intake should be no more than 25 grams or 6 teaspoons worth, about the same as a half a can of soda. Some of the golden rules that the government presented are checking the ingredient labels of processed foods, reducing the use of honey and syrup when cooking, eating fresh fruit instead of drinking juice, and not consuming coffee from vending machines when eating out. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
South Korean government has once again made crystal clear that Japan must stop making false territorial claims over Korea's Dokdo Island. Now this as Tokyo is poised to issue its 2016 diplomatic white paper in the next few days. In it, wrongful sovereignty claims over Korea's easternmost island. In light of the episode, our Kim Hye-sung lays out some facts about Dokdo.
We've been watching Japanese media's coverage on Tokyo's diplomatic blue book and its claims over Dokdo Island. What I can clearly say at this point is that Dokdo belongs to Korea historically, geographically, and by international law. Japan should stop all kinds of provocations that undermines Korea's sovereignty over Dokdo.
This was the statement released by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on Thursday in response to Japan's continuous claims over Korea's easternmost Dokdo Island. And recent geographical evidence shows that Dokdo is larger and deeper than previously thought. According to the Korea Hydrographic and Oceanographic Agency, the height of Dokdo, which is 168 meters above sea level, is just the tip of the iceberg, literally. The agency said that the total height stands at 2,068 meters if the area underwater is taken into consideration, meaning that Dokdo could be higher than Mount Halla in Jeju Island, Korea's highest peak, which stands at 1,950 meters. Dokdo has been known for its unique landscape and ecosystem, which is home to rare fauna and flora as well as marine life. According to Korea's Environment Ministry, Dokdo has abundant mineral resources that represent a great asset to the country. Dokdo was annexed by Japan in 1905 ahead of its colonization of the Korean peninsula, and Korea regained sovereignty over the island after World War II. Thus, Dokdo is for Koreans not only a geographical landmark in the East Sea or a source of resources, but a symbol of national identity and pride. Kim Hye-sung, Arirang News.
Earnings estimates are rolling in. The world's largest smartphone maker, Samsung Electronics, predicts its first quarter operating profit likely rose more than 10% from a year earlier, beating analysts' expectations. Now this thanks largely to a product that recently has been its Achilles heel, smartphones. Our Kim Yun-ji has more on the tech giant's earnings surprise.
Samsung Electronics posted better than expected earnings in the first quarter of this year. According to the company's earnings guidance, operating profits stood at roughly $5.7 billion during the January to March period, up more than 10% from a year ago. Sales edged up almost 4% on year to over $42 billion. The operating profit estimate beats the recent market consensus of about $4.8 billion. Analysts attribute the surprise earnings to the release of Samsung's new flagship smartphone models.
Sales of the Galaxy S7 were much better than market expectations. Also, sales of Samsung's premium chips are expected to have offset the losses of falling chip prices.
On top of that, Samsung is believed to have benefited from favorable foreign currency conditions. A relatively strong greenback allowed for greater profits as transactions of components are made using the dollar, while for finished goods it means products gain price competitiveness in overseas markets. Samsung will release its finalized earnings later this month. If the results are in line with its estimates, it would mark a turnaround in earnings for the tech giant's mobile division, which had been weighed down by stiff competition from Apple and up-and-coming Chinese rivals. For the second quarter, analysts expect Samsung to stay on track for recovery on the back of seasonal demand, as well as more orders for IT devices in overseas markets, which will likely cancel out marketing costs from its mobile division. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Amid the ongoing Panama Papers scandal exposing millions of records on offshore entities, we're learning today that its ripple effects are found in the Korean equity markets as well. This, a local industry tracker reveals, in the form of billions of dollars from tax havens. Our Oh Soo-young has more on the findings.
More than $2.3 billion US. That's the amount that flowed into Korea's equity market from major tax havens around the world, according to Thursday's data from Taebo.com. Based on Tuesday's market close, the industry tracker found the amount of tax haven capital accounts for more than 6% of all foreign investment in the Korean stock market. And where did the money come from? Most of it, or more than $870 million, was tracked to the Virgin Islands, followed by Bermuda, the Cayman Islands and Switzerland. But that's only half the picture. If suspected tax havens such as Singapore, Hong Kong, the Netherlands and Ireland are included, the amount of capital from offshore havens is an estimated $13 billion. Some analysts say that Korean nationals, or the so-called black-haired foreigners, are among these foreign investors who set up offshore shell companies to keep their assets under wraps. This comes amid the Panama Papers scandal, which leaked millions of records on offshore accounts. Korea's Financial Supervisory Service has vowed to investigate the 195 Koreans on the list to see if they violated the Foreign Exchange Transaction Act. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
It's been about a week since world leaders gathered in Washington for the fourth and final Nuclear Security Summit, and high on the agenda, albeit not on the official agenda, was North Korea's nuclear program. Today, the reclusive state's nuclear ambitions topped the negotiations table once again between South Korea and the International Atomic Energy Agency in downtown Seoul. Our Kwon So-ah outlines what was discussed.
In the wake of North Korea's fourth nuclear test earlier this year, and growing concerns that another test may already be in the works for later this year, South Korea and the International Atomic Energy Agency sat down for high-level talks at Seoul's Foreign Ministry on Thursday, focused on ways to effectively deal with Pyongyang's nuclear threats.
Safeguards issues, non-proliferation issues in the Korean Peninsula are of most importance for our delegation and our work. Our cooperation has been excellent over the past years, and the safeguards activities are improving in an excellent manner.
Both sides have had broad discussions on effective measures against global nuclear proliferation, ways to strengthen nuclear safety measures through the IAEA, and ways to promote the peaceful use of nuclear energy.
Promoting the peaceful use of nuclear material is the main goal of the nearly 170-member state international organization within the United Nations that was inspired by Atoms for Peace, the 1953 speech by U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower. The consultations with South Korean officials began in 2013, with this round being the fourth. According to Seoul's foreign ministry, the meeting is expected to contribute to the efforts made at the Nuclear Security Summit in Washington a week ago, and comes ahead of an IAEA ministerial meeting on nuclear security later this year to be chaired by Seoul's Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, North Korea continues to promote its Rare Party Congress, expected to be held early next month. But it looks like the recently imposed international sanctions on the regime is taking its toll. Pyongyang definitely seems to be having a hard time raising enough money to hold a successful political event. For details, our correspondent in charge of North Korean affairs, Connie Kim.
There is just about a month left until North Korea's ruling Workers' Party Congress, and Pyongyang is promoting the event by touting the third one. North Korea's Dodong Shinmun newspaper said Thursday Pyongyang had declared its independence and established the foundation for a socialist society during the 7-day event in 1956. It added the North will use the upcoming party congress to lay out the achievements of its revolution and success of its ongoing construction projects. South Korea's National Intelligence Service expects the convention to start on May 7th, but the preparations already seem to have hit a few bumps. With the recent UN sanctions imposed on Pyongyang, North Korean restaurants operating overseas have started to feel the pinch. Radio Free Asia reported Thursday that a fifth of the 15 North Korean restaurants in Dandong, China's largest border city with the North, have gone out of business since the sanctions were imposed last month. 3 out of the 6 North Korean restaurants operating in the Cambodian capital, Phnom Penh, have already reportedly gone out of business as well. This is mainly because South Korea urged its citizens not to visit the restaurants in order to deprive the North of the funds, which are widely suspected of being funneled into the regime's nuclear weapons development program. And in another example of the North's ongoing fundraising efforts, Radio Free Asia also reported the North had opened a new hospital in Tanzania in early February. North Korea is expected to continue these activities, but whether it'll raise enough for a successful political event is doubtful, with sanctions cutting off the North's supply of cash. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Well, if the South Korean military's fighter jet pilot gets into trouble in a combat situation, it's critical to bring them back home safely. Their lives and safety comes first, of course, but also cannot go ignored is the considerable investment made in training these pilots. The amount estimated at $10 million. Well, for these two reasons, South Korea's Air Force regularly conducts pilot rescue exercises to prepare for the worst. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
A Korean fighter jet gets shot down in enemy territory, but luckily, the pilot ejects in time and lands in a mountainous area. After calling for help, he sends out his GPS coordinates. He is picked up by a special air rescue team, which brings him to flat terrain, where a rescue helicopter is standing by to escort the troops to safety. This is all part of the Korean Air Force's pilot combat search and rescue exercise, which involves 30 special air rescue troops and 2 helicopters.
It could take days to rescue a pilot in distress, so our goal is to create a realistic atmosphere so we will be able to deal with harsh situations and enhance the pilot's fitness level.
In peacetime, the Special Air Rescue Troops participate in numerous operations, including search and rescue, patient evacuation, and disaster relief. This year's 5-day pilot rescue exercise runs through Friday.
언제 어디든 우리는 간다.
Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
It seems to be a global trend in recent years, but for here in Korea, stats back it up. More Koreans are now waiting longer to tie the knot, putting the country's marriage rate at a record low last year. But why the wait? Well, our Hwang Ji-hae tells you why.
I've just managed to land a job and I need to settle down here. I'm also not financially independent from my parents, so I think I'll have to wait for maybe 2 more years to get married.
I think for me, the main reason of putting off marriage is economic issues. I need to buy a house, and to do so, I need a certain amount of money. I wasn't able to do that yet, so I had to delay getting married.
Due to such tendency of waiting longer to tie the knot, coupled with a fewer number of people falling in the marriageable age bracket, the marriage rate in Korea hit the lowest since 1970 when related data was first compiled at 5.9. The figure represents the number of marriages per 1,000 people. The total number of marriages in 2015 also stood at around 302,000, the fewest since 2003. It's no surprise that the average age of people getting married for the first time is on the rise. In particular, the average age for women hit 30 for the first time ever.
Both men and women are now spending more time studying and finding jobs, and this is raising the average age for first-time marriages.
But delaying the walk down the aisle may mean more stable and wiser marriages. The number of divorces last year dropped for the first time in 4 years to roughly 109,000. 황지혜, 아리랑 뉴스.
Chinese censors have stepped up efforts to scrub that country's media of revelations about politicians and powerful people hiding their wealth in tax havens. Bruce Harrison is live in the studio with me for more. Bruce, how far-flung is the government's efforts to hide certain Chinese ties to the so-called Panama Papers scandal?
Kanyang, this seems to actually be a pretty intense effort by the government to hide this story. The leak revealed that family members of at least 8 former or current Chinese ruling party elites have offshore companies. And according to the China Digital Times, Beijing ordered media to delete all reports about the leak and said it'll harshly punish those who don't follow the order. Panamanian law firm Mossack Fonseca is at the center of the leak, and the group of journalists behind the story say the firm's busiest office is in Hong Kong.
Well, Hong Kong is in China, so it's very easy for a wealthy Chinese or for a politician to come to Hong Kong and set up everything. And of course, Hong Kong has a well-established banking system.
Analysts say to their belief most offshore activity is legal. It's unclear whether China will investigate the alleged ties. Iceland's prime minister, meanwhile, was the first major politician to resign over ties to an offshore company, but he now says he never formally resigned and only stepped aside for an unspecified period. France has passed a law making it illegal to pay for sex. That law will punish consumers rather than the sex workers. AFP reports France is now the 5th country in Europe to criminalize people buying sexual services, joining Sweden, Norway, Iceland, and the UK. Supporters of the law say it's aimed at making life tougher for human traffickers, but critics say it's stripping sex workers of their livelihoods.
We won't be able to declare what we earn anymore. We won't be able to pay our social taxes or our bills. That's why we're angry.
The law also makes soliciting sex legal, and supporters say the measures encourage sex workers to report crimes being committed against them.
Well, Bruce, it seems like prostitution laws differ by countries all around the world. Of course, a few weeks ago, we saw the Korea's Constitutional Court ruling keeping these prostitution illegal. But then whereas in the Netherlands, it's legal.
In that country, it's legal. Here, it's been illegal since 2004. And like you said, just last week, the Supreme Court in this country shot down an appeal to change that law. So here, both the consumer and the sex worker are punished if they're caught in the act.
That's correct. And in its ruling, it cited prostitution being greatly harmful to society. Well, Bruce, thank you so much for your coverage tonight.
No problem.
And time now to get a check on the weather conditions with our Lee Ji-hyun at the Weather Center. Ji-hyun, I don't think we can ask for better weather these days. It's warm enough, but with a nice breeze.
Well, Gonyo, I can't agree with you more, but these conditions can also easily trigger spring fever, which many people suffers from these days. And I wonder if you're one of them, Gonyo.
Well, spring fever, I don't know, but definitely the spring weather is keeping me warm and happy.
Definitely. But a lot of people are actually suffering from this spring fever. And to give you some tips, when we usually drink caffeinated drinks, but actually health experts recommend stretching your whole body or taking a walk. And tomorrow should be a perfect day to be outdoors. We have another pleasant day in the forecast with highs going above upper teens or in the low 20s across the nation. Also, clean air to breathe in and mostly sunny skies will be featured throughout the day, so be sure to take advantage of these wonderful weather conditions. But single-digit morning lows will continue to sweep in as the daily low here in Seoul and Daejeon will start out at 7 degrees Celsius, and Busan and Jeju will kick off at 12 and 11. And as for the daily highs, it's going to be a touch cooler than today, Seoul topping out at 18, while Busan and Jeju see a high of 21 and 18 respectively. Now the weather forecast looks promising. Highs will be around or above the norms for a while, and a good amount of sunshine will dominate the sky here in the capital. That's Korea for you, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that is our broadcast on this first Thursday of April. I'm Moon Gun-young. Thank you as always for watching, and we hope to see you right back here, same time tomorrow on NewsCenter.